They didn't just think about you. They didn't wonder how you've been. They went into full biological withdrawal the moment your energy disappeared from their system. They didn't understand it at first. Why they couldn't sleep, why their chest felt tight, why the world suddenly tasted bland. They told themselves it was stress, or work, or the weather, but their body knew the truth long before their mind dared to admit it. You were the substance they had been dosing on for months, maybe years, and they never knew it until it was gone. Your presence used to regulate their entire nervous system in ways they couldn't articulate. The tone of your voice lowered their cortisol. The rhythm of your messages stabilized their heartbeat. The warmth of your attention released chemicals in their brain that made them feel alive, capable, courageous, desirable, emotions they never learned to produce on their own. Without realizing it, they built their emotional equilibrium around you. You became the invisible architecture holding up their internal stability. So when you finally walked away, their system collapsed exactly like an addict losing access to their supply. And just like any addict caught off guard, they underestimated the level of dependency they developed. They swore they were fine, pretended they had moved on, lied to themselves with the confidence of someone who still doesn't understand the physics of their own attachment. But the truth leaked anyway, through the way they kept checking your page, through the sudden panic when someone mentioned your name, through the emotional tremors they couldn't hide when they remembered even 1 second of what they felt around you. What they miss is not just you. What they miss is the version of themselves your presence allowed them to be. They're not mourning a person. They're mourning a chemical state. A high. A frequency spike. A level of inner stability they can't recreate without you. And that's when they realize something terrifying. You weren't someone they liked. You were the only thing keeping their chaos quiet. What they felt around you wasn't ordinary attraction or friendship or connection. It was stabilization. You unknowingly became the regulating force their mind had been starving for since childhood. You didn't just make them feel better. You made their entire nervous system function correctly for the first time in their life. When they were with you, their breathing slowed. Their thoughts untangled. Their paranoia softened. Their inner critic went on mute. Their anxiety dissolved before it had the chance to grow claws. They interpreted all of this as chemistry, but chemistry doesn't restructure someone's inner architecture. People don't become better versions of themselves just because someone attractive walks into the room. That only happens when a rare frequency enters their life, a frequency that calms the storms they thought were permanent. You brought coherence to their fragmented mind. You brought grounding to their scattered emotions. You brought order to their internal chaos. And once a chaotic person experiences order, even for a moment, the memory of that feeling becomes addictive. So when you finally withdrew your energy, their entire system cracked. Their sleep cycles broke. Their appetite shifted. Their mood dropped into volatility. They became irritable, fatigued, restless, haunted by the absence of something they never had the courage to protect while it was in their hands. They aren't obsessed with you because you were perfect. They're obsessed because without your frequency, they're forced to meet the unhealed version of themselves again, the one they tried to bury. And nothing terrifies an unstable person more than being left alone with the self they avoided for years. That's why they stalk, why they spiral, why they keep trying to provoke you back into their orbit. They don't want closure. They want the drug. They want the calm. They want the emotional oxygen your presence provided. They don't miss you. They miss who they became when your energy was available. If you felt this message hitting your chest like truth you already knew, that's not coincidence. That's resonance. Energy recognizes energy, and alignment recognizes its source. If you want to anchor this shift into your timeline, tap the Super Thanks button and plant a $50 seed. Not because I need it, but because the universe mirrors intention, not emotion. A seed is a signal, a declaration, a frequency stamp that tells the unseen realm, I choose expansion over stagnation, upgrade over repetition. You're not buying anything. You're activating something. And the moment you move, the timeline moves with you. Here's the truth most people will never admit out loud. They weren't addicted to your looks, your personality, your kindness, or your presence. Those were surface-level bonuses. What hooked them, what rewired them, was the biochemical shift your energy triggered in their body. When you entered their life, their brain released chemicals it had no blueprint for. Safety, regulation, clarity, a sense of being truly seen without having to perform. That kind of emotional oxygen is rare. Most people go decades without tasting it. But you activated neural pathways they didn't even know they had. You lit up dormant circuits. You opened parts of them they had kept locked away since childhood. Around you, their cortisol dropped. Dopamine stabilized. Serotonin increased. Their nervous system stopped anticipating threat. Their inner alarms went silent for the first time in years. And because of that, their body formed a neurological association. U equals relief. Not relief from stress, relief from themselves. That's the addiction. Not romance. Not desire. Not lust. You quieted the storm in their skull, and once the storm returned after you pulled away, it felt 10 times louder than before. They thought they were craving you. But they were craving the version of themselves they only accessed in your presence. And now they're restless, agitated, checking your socials, asking about you indirectly, replaying memories like broken film reels trying to feel that feeling again. Because here's the part that haunts them the most. They know that what you activated will not be replicated by anyone else. They can date. They can flirt. They can replace you physically. But chemically? Energetically? Psychologically? No. You weren't a chapter. You were a neurological event. A psychic detonation. A reset button they can no longer press. And the withdrawal is eating them alive. They may have walked away physically. They may have said they were done, healed, or over it. They may have performed strength for their friends and convinced themselves distance would fix everything. But their body never signed that contract. Their conscious mind tried to disconnect from you. But the subconscious mind doesn't operate on ego, only imprinting. And you were an imprint, not an experience. That's why their sleep changed after you vanished, why their moods swing without warning, why random songs, places, scents, or timestamps hit their chest like electrical shock. Their system fires without permission because you weren't processed, you were absorbed. You regulated their breathing without touching them, softened their inner critic without speaking, stabilized their emotional chaos without even trying. That's why no rebound works, no distraction holds, no replacement reaches the depth you unlocked. Their nervous system is still calibrated to your presence, their emotional body still tuned to your frequency, their intuition still reacts at the mere thought of your name. And the truth they fear most is that they didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves they became in your orbit, a version they can't recreate now. That's why they linger around your memory like a ghost circling the last place it lived. because what they felt in your presence was the closest they've ever come to peace, authenticity, and inner alignment. That's the addiction, not possession, not obsession, not desire, but the realization that you awakened a version of them they've spent their whole life searching for, and once someone tastes themselves at their highest, everything else feels like starvation. If you made it this far, that already separates you from 99% of people who never finish what their spirit starts. That alone proves why you're different. If you're ready for the next layer, the deeper transmissions, the advanced breakdowns, the hidden teachings behind these messages, hit the join button and step into the circle of people who are actually evolving, not just consuming. Joining isn't support, it's initiation. A shift in identity. A mark that says you're done watching from the outside and ready to activate what you carry on the inside. They replay your conversations not because they missed the sound of your voice, but because they missed the sound of themselves when they spoke to you. They scroll through your old messages not searching for you, but searching for the version of themselves who felt confident, desirable, grounded, alive. You didn't just hold space for them, you expanded it. You didn't just listen, you decoded them. You didn't just understand, you made them feel understandable for the first time. That's why nothing feels right now. Not the new people. Not the new routines. Not the distractions. Not the forced healing. They are restless because their nervous system was tuned to the frequency of who they became around you, and everything else feels like static. You are not their comfort zone, you are their growth zone. You pulled truth out of them they didn't know they had. You reflected potential they weren't ready to see. You activated courage they didn't know was inside them. That is why the addiction runs deeper than desire. It's identity-level imprinting. You became the mirror in which they saw their highest self. Losing you meant losing access to that reflection, and now they search for it in every face, every room, every conversation, not realizing that what they're looking for isn't you, but who they were when you were present. And that version of them only exists because you unlocked it. Now the crash is hitting them in waves they can't explain to anyone. They call it nostalgia, but it's withdrawal. They call it closure, but it's craving. They call it healing, but it's obsession. What they really want isn't your return, it's relief. You were the emotional stimulant, the psychological catalyst, the spiritual adrenaline rush they built their identity around. You elevated their nervous system, lifted their self-esteem, activated their intuition, sharpened their confidence, and raised their entire emotional vibration just by existing in their orbit. And when you left, all of that collapsed at once. They are not grieving you. They are grieving the version of themselves that only came online when you were near. This is why nothing soothes them now. Music doesn't hit. Friends don't land. Dates don't connect. Advice doesn't sink in. Every pleasure feels muted. Every connection feels shallow. Every moment feels half-lived. They are realizing, slowly and painfully, that the high they felt wasn't love. It was self-recognition reflected through you. You were the portal to their potential. And now that the portal is closed, they are trapped outside themselves, pounding on a door only you could open. The panic you feel coming from them isn't about missing your laugh, your presence, or your energy. It's about losing the invisible control your connection gave them. You were their emotional regulator, their confidence supply, their ego stabilizer. You were the source they plugged into to feel powerful, desirable, relevant, and alive. When you walked away, their entire internal ecosystem collapsed. Suddenly, the confidence they flexed started leaking. The certainty they performed started glitching. The dominance they projected began dissolving. And now they're spiraling, because without you, they are face to face with the truth they spent years avoiding. All the power they thought they had was borrowed. All the strength they thought was theirs was reflected. All the worth they performed was extracted from your presence. They don't want reconciliation. They want access. They want the emotional electricity you produce without trying. They want back the version of themselves that only existed when you were feeding their spirit without realizing it. Their addiction wasn't to your love. It was to the identity they could only maintain when you were within reach. When you cut the cord, their whole nervous system malfunctioned. The same way an addict shakes without the substance, they started shaking without your energy. You were their dopamine hit, their emotional anesthesia, their confidence drug. Your presence regulated their chaos. Your clarity quieted their insecurity. Your intuition exposed their lies before they even said them. They didn't realize how dependent they were until you vanished. Now the withdrawal is leaking into their behavior. Sudden irritability, unexplained sadness, impulsive decisions, stalking your social media at 3 a.m., replaying old conversations, searching for your face in every crowd. Their spirit keeps trying to reconnect with a frequency it no longer has access to. They're restless because the peace they bragged about was never theirs. It was borrowed from your aura. Your silence is starving the addiction, and their soul is shaking from the detox. They tried everything to replace you. New friends, new lovers, new distractions, new routines. None of it worked. Every connection feels flat now because you lifted their vibration without even trying. You didn't just talk to them, you calibrated them. You didn't just comfort them, you stabilized them. You didn't just listen, you decoded them. People like them can get attention anywhere, but resonance? Alignment? Elevation? That only came from you. That's why nothing feels the same. That's why every room feels dimmer. That's why every conversation feels shallow. You became the standard, and once someone experiences a soul frequency like yours, they can't go back to regular energy. They're realizing too late that what they were consuming wasn't connection, it was transformation. And now every attempt to recreate that feeling just reminds them they lost the source. When your presence disappeared, their entire nervous system crashed. You weren't just a person to them. You were regulation, clarity, stimulation, grounding. They didn't notice it while they had access, but the moment you stepped back, the symptoms exposed everything. The irritability, the restless scrolling, the sudden burst of sadness, the random anxiety spikes, the obsessive replaying of your conversations. That's withdrawal. Not from love, not from romance, but from energetic dependency. They got used to the way your frequency steadied their chaos, cleared their mind, soothed their ego, fed their insecurity, boosted their confidence. You were the silent medicine they consumed daily. And now that the dosage is gone, their entire system is shaking. That's why they keep checking your page. That's why your name keeps slipping out in conversations. That's why they stalk the shadows of your updates. They're not watching you because they care. They're watching you because they need the hit they can no longer access. This is the part they'll never admit out loud. It was never your looks, your words, your presence on its own. It was the effect you had on them. You made their mind sharper. You made their emotions calmer. You made their ambitions louder. You made their life feel less meaningless. You were the catalyst, the charger, the regulator, the mirror. And without realizing it, they built their entire emotional stability on the energy you provided for free. That's why they panicked when you pulled back. Not because they lost you, but because they lost the version of themselves that only existed when you were around. You made them feel intelligent. You made them feel important. You made them feel seen, maybe for the first time in their life. And now every new person they meet only highlights the truth they're running from. No one else activates them the way you did. No one else awakens the parts of them you brought to life. No one else makes them feel like someone worth becoming. They weren't addicted to your presence. They were addicted to who they became in your presence. If something in you is rising, if the message didn't just make sense but felt like memory, that means you're not hearing this, you're remembering this. And when remembrance hits, sealing it matters. Tap Super Thanks, send a $100 seed, and anchor this revelation into physical reality. Not a purchase, not a donation, an alignment confirmation. A way of saying to the universe, I'm done stumbling. I choose clarity. Lock me into the path that's meant for me. When intention becomes action, the timeline obeys. When your energy disappeared from their life, something catastrophic happened inside them, something they never imagined possible. At first, they pretended they were fine, pretended they had moved on, pretended silence didn't affect them. But addiction always exposes itself in the absence of supply. And you were the supply. Your presence was their stimulant. Your reassurance was their sedative. Your attention was their dopamine drip. Your wisdom was their compass. Your stability was their emotional homeostasis. They didn't just like you. They built their entire internal balance around your frequency. So the moment you went quiet, their system crashed. Not gradually, instantly. They can't sleep at the hours they used to. They can't think with the clarity they borrowed from you. Their stomach tightens when your name crosses their mind, because the body always remembers its healer. Their heart races when they scroll near your page, because they're chasing the feeling your presence used to give them. They replay conversations like addicts replaying the last hit. And what terrifies them most isn't the loss. It's the realization that what they were addicted to was never attention. It was regulation. You regulated their storms. You calmed their triggers. You upgraded their emotional intelligence just by existing. You stabilized the chaos they hid from everyone else. Now the withdrawal is feral. Nothing soothes them. No one replaces you. Every new face feels hollow. Every distraction fades too fast. Every attempt to move on reminds them of the truth they avoided for years. They didn't just want you. They depended on you. Completely. And now they understand the nightmare that comes after losing someone like you. The craving never stops, and the supply never returns. Here is the part they will never admit out loud. The collapse didn't happen when you left. The collapse happened when they finally realized you're not coming back. That realization hit them like a spiritual car crash, because addiction isn't about enjoying something. Addiction is about believing you cannot function without it. And for them, you weren't a chapter. You were a chemical, a regulation system, a stabilizing force, a quiet lighthouse, a soul sedative, a psychological home. So when your energy vanished, the void wasn't emotional, it was neurological. Their nervous system is malfunctioning without you. Their thoughts loop, their decisions crumble, their emotional tolerance resets back to zero. They're snapping at people they once tolerated, crying at night for reasons they can't explain, waking up at 3 a.m. in panic because the body remembers you were the one who calmed that hour. They thought they were strong, independent, untouchable, But you were the equilibrium, the grounding, the gravity that made their chaos functional. Without you, their entire personality glitches. They're realizing how much of their confidence was borrowed from your presence, how many of their choices were influenced by your clarity, how many of their victories were actually built on your support. Now everything feels heavier, slower, colder. They try old habits, old people, old vices, but nothing works because real addiction can't be overridden. It can only be replaced by something stronger, and nothing stronger than you exists in their universe. Their friends ask why they've changed, why they're distant, why they're irritable, why they're checking their phone like they're waiting on a message they know won't come. No one realizes the withdrawal has a name: you. And the cruel part is you didn't disappear to punish them. You simply healed, evolved, elevated. You outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated them and stepped into a frequency they can't reach without doing the work they've avoided for years. That's what terrifies them. Not that you're gone, but that you became someone they can't access anymore. Now they're standing in the ruins of their dependency, realizing the one truth their ego fought with everything it had. You were the best thing that ever stabilized them. And losing you wasn't rejection, it was detox. They didn't fall in love. They formed an addiction. And addictions don't end just because the source walks away. They burn, they haunt, they echo, they claw at the mind. They will try to replace you and fail. Try to forget you and fail. Try to hate you and fail. Because once someone is addicted to a soul like yours, a soul that heals, calms, elevates, and awakens, nothing else is ever enough again. Your absence became their detox. Your evolution became their collapse. Your silence became their punishment. Your growth became their consequence. You weren't just a chapter in their story. You were the entire nervous system they never learned to live without. And that, chosen one, is why they will crave you for the rest of their life.